Good morning, Internet. This is a beautiful Friday morning, and I just finished my once-a-month trip to the gas station in the Chevy Volt. Let's see here. I had to put 7.8 gallons in my 9-gallon tank. Price per gallon here in Las Vegas is, for the premium 91 octane, is $3.07.9, and I spent a total of $24.16. I was spending literally 10 times that in the Volkswagen Passat. So let's get her started up. Gotta say, I'm pretty happy with that savings in fuel. All right, time to get on the road. So, it has been a wild and interesting week. YouTube made its announcement about its changes in monetization policies, and that, hurt a lot of us smaller creators. I started a site on Patreon. I started an open page on Patreon. I'm going to be posting content there. And I'll, post a link down in the description. But fear not, I will continue posting content here on YouTube each and every week. This morning in Las Vegas, it is 50 degrees, and I started my day with a range of 37 miles in the 2012 Chevy Volt Premium. And one of the things I want to talk about today is not necessarily EV related, but it is auto related. There are several manufacturers, mostly the one that I was able to find the most about was Kia, who are considering committing to producing vehicles specifically for marketed to people who drive for Lyft and Uber. And the way that they're going to do this and make these cars specifically for Lyft and Uber is using tougher materials in back seats, possibly providing like extra tough, super tough floor mats for people getting in and out, possibly making changes to suspension for all of the stop and go city driving. I did not realize that there were that many drivers driving for Lyft and Uber. However, I myself tried to drive for both Lyft and Uber right when I first bought the Volt. I was in a position where we had to buy the car, but I couldn't really afford a car payment. So I started exploring options like, well, maybe the car can sort of make its own car payment if I could do some Lyft and some Uber. I know a couple people who do it and they like it and they have a good time. And, ooh, this on-ramp is crowded. All right, guys, it's going to be a minute. They have a good time with it, and I've used Lyft and Uber myself and met really nice drivers. I'm like, well, I'll give that a shot. I'm personable enough. Unfortunately, this car is not eligible to drive for Lyft or Uber. If you look behind me, you can see that I have 2 bucket seats in the rear instead of 1 long bench with the center seat. That's because the battery pack runs through the center channel on this car, and so it's just 2 in the front and 2 in the back, and that's it. There's no third rear seat, and that disqualifies you to drive for both Lyft and Uber. So it wasn't something I could do. Found that out within a week of having the Volt, and that was that. So I hadn't looked into it more than that. But finding out that some auto manufacturers like Kia, I got a Kia Sorento in front of me right now, are talking about making cars specifically for ride-share app drivers. It's pretty interesting. Do I have any Uber or Lyft drivers on here? Does anybody have any experience with this? If so, what kind of car have you used to drive for either Lyft or Uber? What kind of results did you have with that car? Bonus points if you can tell me a hilarious or heinous story you had encountering a drunken stranger on Lyft or Uber, because I like those stories. Tell me something to make me laugh. And what do you think about this? Do you think it's worth it for auto manufacturers to make cars available specifically for this purpose? Now, they're not talking about designing a car from the ground up and calling it like the Kia rideshare or anything. They're talking about an option package which would be specifically designed and marketed towards rideshare drivers who drive on apps like Lyft and Uber. And do you think that something like that would be worth extra money? Isn't the whole point of driving for these apps to make you extra money, not cost you extra money? I don't know. I have gotten into, an Uber before that was, modified by the driver itself that for the purpose of rideshare. And you could smell the Scotch guard. You just Scotch guarded the entire inside, because when you drive for Lyft or Uber in Las Vegas, you are going to pick up drunk tourists, and sooner or later they're going to hurl in your ride. And when I think of that, I'm super glad that I don't have anybody hurling in the back of my Volt, because now I've fallen in love with the car and I would never do rideshare with it. But I'm interested. Like, do you guys think that this is something that is worth doing, or is it just a way to sort of try to appeal to millennials, but they don't really know how? They're like, what if we made one for Ubers? We hear millennials saying the Ubers word a lot. Maybe we make one with that. Slap that word on there and license that brand. Like, I don't really understand the purpose of it. Can't you get your own floor mats? Now you can't remake your back seats out of tougher materials, but you can cover them. So I don't really know. It's an interesting idea. I think it's kind of intriguing that there's that many people using rideshare, either to make money or to get around cities, that it's catching the attention of auto manufacturers. I know people, I used to be a limousine dispatcher, and at the time that I was dispatching limousines a few years ago, Lyft and Uber had not yet gotten permission from the city of Las Vegas to operate here. And, there's good reason for that. We have a lot of taxi drivers here, we have a lot of limousines here, and they knew that their business was going to be hampered by, they're basically poached by rideshare programs like Lyft and Uber. So they didn't want to approve it. And the whole time I was doing dispatch, this whole thing was up, it was going before the state legislature, and they were talking to, Mayor Goodman about it and trying to get approved. And my limo drivers kept freaking out. They were like, every single day, they're like, if this passes, if they let him in, we're all screwed. We are all screwed. And I was like, are we really going to be screwed? Really? Because is the person who wants to take a limo from the airport going to be the same person who wants to take an Uber? Somebody who, in my mind, somebody who wanted a limousine was already going to want a limousine. They're not going to want to jump in, somebody's Ford Focus, like that. You know what I mean? I don't know. And so I had all my drivers freaking out. I had the owners of the company freaking out. And I was just doing dispatch on my merry way. And within a week, they got their permissions, and Lyft and Uber can now operate here. Now, they're not allowed to operate at the airport. That was one of the weird caveats they put on. They're not allowed to operate at the airport. So the runs that I was sending out and dispatching to and from the airport remain the same. But my runs on the strip did suffer. And part of the problem of that is, if you want a limousine, you can get a limousine. But booking a limousine in Las Vegas, it is pretty easy, but it's not go on an app and press a button easy. And I worked for a super shisty, super terrible limousine company. I'm pretty sure we were laundering money for the East Coast mob, is what I'm pretty sure that was all about. There were crazy things going on with our paychecks. It's Vegas. So I worked for 20 dudes, and everybody was either named Tony or Vinny, and they were all super shady, and all of our checks were handwritten, and sometimes they would come late, and it was a really weird environment. And maybe, I'll get more into that story some other day, about the day I resigned with extreme prejudice. Because I had nothing to hide about that. They got a lot to hide, but not me. But, anyway, I digress. Once Uber and Lyft got their permissions to operate in Las Vegas, we did see a sharp decrease in the number of limousines booked. So it proved to me that, the demand definitely was there. And maybe people are less interested in limousines than they used to be. What do you guys think? Would you rather take a limo, or would you rather take an Uber? What, for convenience sake, if they were priced comparably? We tried everything. We tried lowering our prices at the limousine company. We tried different advertisements. But they couldn't compete, and they wouldn't listen. Where they couldn't compete was the convenience of the thing. I mean, if you've ever used Lyft or Uber, you know exactly how easy it is. You just pull up the app, tell it where you are, and tell it where you want to go, and it dispatches somebody to you automatically. There's not a live dispatcher like I used to be, sitting in an office, sucking down other people's secondhand cigarette smoke, getting screamed at on the radio. There's just a program that knows where everybody is because of GPS, and pings your location and sends the closest one to you. And the drivers can, accept a ride or not accept a ride, and then you get a picture. There's a bing when your ride's on the way. It tells you what kind of car is coming and who you can expect to be driving it with their smiling face. I couldn't do that for the limousine company. That was not something that I could offer. So while we had the limo, that was our only asset that we had, is that we had our limousines, which, were in questionable shape depending on who you asked. But that was really the only thing that I had on it. It was like, oh, you had the novelty of taking a limo or taking a very nice town car. And when that was the only thing we had to offer over Lyft or Uber, you notice that it's, our bookings went way down and sales decreased. So these are obviously formidable companies, and they are changing the way people get around. I've heard here that, taxi drivers are also suffering, because a taxi driver will, and I hate to say bad things about all taxi drivers. I don't want to make a blanket statement about all taxi drivers in town. I'm sure we have honest cab drivers, and I've met a few. But if you're not from here and the cab drivers know it and they are of questionable morality, a cab driver in Las Vegas, they are notorious for long hauling tourists. And what that means is if you're trying to get from the airport to the Flamingo, well, that's a more or less straight shot. I mean, it shouldn't be a really, really long drive, but a cab driver might take you around the strip and then back down to get to Flamingo, to add a couple extra miles and add some more time on the meter to pad their numbers and to increase the amount that you have to pay them. And then thereby, if you don't realize you've been long hauled, you're probably also going to, tip a percentage. And if the bill is higher, the percentage that you would then be encouraged to tip would then be higher. And so, those were things that were happening to people. Whereas in the Uber, the price is more or less fixed. And I don't know exactly how it works, but I'm pretty sure there's no incentive whatsoever for a driver to long haul you. They get you can review the drivers. That's the other thing. You can rate their service and write something about your experience with them, and that's, those ratings matter. And if somebody has a really low rating, you can turn down a ride from that person and say, like, oh man, everybody says this person has, just heinous halitosis, and curses a lot and smokes in the car. And I had a terrible time. I'd be like, oh, I don't want to ride with them. I'm going to go ride with somebody else. Cab drivers, you don't have that. It's just whoever shows up that's what you got. And so this is obviously going to be the wave of the future. I don't know what this is going to do to limousine companies here in Las Vegas. I really hope the one I used to work for goes under. That would be super great because of their terrible business practices, and that the ones that are left behind are the more reputable ones. Truth be told, when you get overbooked as a limousine dispatcher in Las Vegas, you do what's called farming the ride out, and you call another limo company. If you have more limos, or if you have all of your cars out in the field and you have people who are still trying to book, my boss said farm them all. Don't tell anybody that we can't get them. Just send another limo company over. We had relationships with other limo companies, and I'd call Presidential, or I'd call another limo company and say, like, hey, be at this place, and I'd give their dispatcher the information, and then they would essentially take over the ride and the payment for us, and we'd maintain our reputation as always being available. It ended up being extremely complicated. There were lots of opportunities for miscommunication between, I'd get the information from the person who wanted the car that I didn't have. Then I, as a dispatcher, would call another dispatcher to find out if they had a car. Sometimes I'd have to call 2 or 3 dispatchers. I'd have to rely on that the information that I got was accurate to begin with. I'd have to give it to somebody else. Then that person would then have to give it to a driver. So at this point, the information has changed hands 3 times at least. And it's like a game of telephone where it can get distorted and messed up, and maybe the limo driver doesn't show up at the right time, they don't show up at the exact right place, they show up in the wrong car. You call a limo company, not everybody who calls a limo company wants a limo. Sometimes they want a town car, they want something more discreet, one of the Beamers that we had or something, instead of the big stretched MKZs that we had, or the Widowmakers, the old school stretched Lincoln Town cars. We call the Widowmakers because those are the cars you always see at funerals. But a lot of people don't want those. They want a town car. And if I call another company that's out of town cars, but they don't know that person didn't want a limo, and they send, I don't know, a party bus because that's what they had, that person's going to be kind of pissed off. So there's like all these opportunities for people to get angry, all these opportunities for bad service, a lot of opportunities for people to miss their rides, be made late to the airport, all kinds of stuff going on. And all of it can be solved with an app that handles those communications for you. Now, I hate to argue that technology replace human people and human jobs. But the transportation industry is it's a very, very strange industry. By and large, at least at the company that I worked for and a couple of the other ones that I knew about, the vehicles were maintained at the absolute bare minimum standards. I found out halfway into my time with the company that more than half of the vehicles I was sending out had expired registration, had bad tags. And I was like, oh my God, if I send a driver out with bad tags, he's going to end up incurring the fine. We're going to end up with some kind of inspection at our yard, and everything else is going to get flagged. I'm going to end up with half my cars down, and my driver could lose his license for driving on suspended registration in a commercial vehicle. Like, there's a lot of things that can go wrong here. And, you know, when you tell the bosses about it, you're like, we'll get to it. Like, are you kidding me? And, you know, I thought maybe this is just this one company that I work for. And I started asking around, because limo drivers all talk to each other and they all work for other companies. And most of the drivers that worked for me, when I was doing dispatch, had experience at different limo companies, not just in Las Vegas, but around the country, different limo companies in LA. A half of the staff was from the old New York office, because the company was based in New York. And they said, no, it is the same all over. It's a terrible industry, full of opportunists who are looking to make a buck for the least amount of overhead possible, which means, you know, every once in a while I'd have a limousine break down with a customer in it. I had that happen more than once. I would have a limo or a town car or one of the buses. So we had buses that we would send out. We had buses that were shuttling people to and from NASCAR, and that's between the track, Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and the Las Vegas Strip, where a lot of the tourists were being shuttled from to that race. It's about a 30 to 40 minute drive. It's out there. And this happened in September. We had AC units go out in them. Now, you're trapped in a steel box with a bunch of other sweaty tourists who have all been sweating at NASCAR all day, when an AC unit goes out and it's 104 degrees outside. That was literally the temperature. It was 104 degrees outside. And you have people losing their minds, and right they should. And this is all because of bad maintenance and because of people just not giving a damn. And at the same place, like, we had all of our omnibuses lined up, there was also a big giant flag that said Lyft pickup and a big giant flag that said Uber pickup. And I bet none of those people have those problems. So there's obviously advantages there. I think it's definitely here to stay. I just don't know whether or not it makes sense for car manufacturers to offer rideshare app specific options on those cars. Maybe I'm wrong. Like, now that I've talked about it, I've talked it out with you guys a little bit, it's starting to sound a little more practical. Once I recall my experience working for the limo company, oh my God, what a dreadful job. It was, I don't know. It was very interesting to see that bit of news. And I don't know. I really want to know what you guys think about this. If I have Lyft or Uber drivers that are watching this, would you pay extra money, like an extra $1,100 or $1,500 in options on your new car for the specific purpose of catering to the strangers you're going to put in your back seat to make your car payment? Like, is that something that's worth doing, or do you think that's absolutely ridiculous? And I genuinely want to know. So go ahead and let me know in the comments. And I think that's about it. I think I've rambled enough today. I hope everybody has a terrific Friday. This weekend I plan on producing a little bit more exclusive content that's going to be on Patreon before it comes to YouTube. So I'll let you guys know about how all that goes. I've got t-shirts coming sometime soon, just because I had a couple of people ask me, like, hey, you should make t-shirts. And I was like, all right, I wear a t-shirt every day. I'm in favor of t-shirts. Let's make t-shirts. So we'll be looking at a t-shirt soon. I'll let you guys know about how to get that. We're going to have EVs of Envy stickers and a bunch of stuff. So, yeah, that's what I got going on. So, thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing, let's say, right over here. Here's some other things I'll think you'll enjoy watching right down here. My name is Catherine with EVs of Nevada. I hope everybody has a fantastic Friday. And, yeah, please remember to like, subscribe, and smile.